everybody, it's Kayla here. Today's video, as you can tell by the title, is 5 things and kind of more things that I think you should know before you become an au pair. Now, I have my notes with me because this is kind of a topic that I think is important, and I just want to have another quick disclaimer. When I talk about being an au pair, in this video anyways, I'm relating more to being an au pair for like 2 months or longer. I don't think that if it's less than 2 months, you're not considered an au pair. I'm just talking about for the long term au pairships and kind of what I experienced, because I was an au pair for 6 months. I was supposed to be an au pair for 11 months, but that's another video, so let's just get started. So the first thing I want to mention is that being an au pair is not easy. Lots of people think it's just an easy job, an easy way to you know, go experience another culture, and you get to travel all the time, and you get money, and all your stuff's paid for, so it's just like this like big party all the time. But it's not like that. And like I said, I'm talking about long-term au pair experiences, because if you do go to be an au pair for a summer and you have like 1 or 2 months, I believe that is completely different to being a long-term year-round au pair. So there is of course the possibility that you will get lucky and you will have that one easy child that absolutely loves you from the beginning, and whose parents are very easygoing and everything is just roses and daisies. But that is not the case for a lot of au pairs. Some families require housework, and I would say it's very important to specify with your family what kind of housework you'll be doing, because being an au pair, I think there are a lot of instances where the host families can kind of end up piling more work on you the longer you're there. And make sure that you just know in detail what work you need to do and what work the parents are doing. But you can have bad or disobedient children, which is of course very difficult, and unfortunately it's also very difficult to explain to parents when you have struggles with this child and their behavior, because unfortunately you're telling these parents that their kids aren't well behaved, and it's difficult. In a new place with a new language, a new culture is of course difficult for anybody really, especially if you're like, you know, a young person going out on their own for the first time. And of course, if you have any dietary preferences, being vegetarian, vegan, maybe you're paleo, maybe you just have a gluten intolerance or a lactose intolerance, it's of course not going to be as easy as being in your real home with your family. And in the beginning, you will have no family or friends. Now, again, it depends on the host family that you have. Maybe you will be accepted and you'll feel like you are right at home right away off the bat. But in other cases, you might not feel like you're necessarily a part of that family for the entire time you're there. I know I felt that way. It was kind of, I mean, this isn't going to be my experience as an au pair, but sometimes it won't feel like home. And of course, unless you can work really hard to get out there and meet friends, it's going to take a while before you can get out and explore and meet people. So before you become an au pair, just know it's not an easy thing. But the second thing I think you should know before you become an au pair is that you need to ask questions. A lot of questions. Now, when I talk about these questions, this is before moving in with this family, and before moving to this other country to start working for this family who you don't really know. I completely recommend that you FaceTime or Skype with this family that you are interested in au pairing for, because you need to have a conversation with them face to face to make sure, of course, they're legitimate people, but just so that you can kind of get a feel of who they are as people and as a family. Ask questions, ask a lot of questions, ask whatever questions come to your mind, and before you Skype or FaceTime, make a list of those questions so that you don't have to sit there thinking, and they'll see you're a very responsible person having these questions ready for them. I have an example here written down. So it's really important to ask about discipline in the household. How do they want you to discipline? What are they expecting from you? Playing, cooking, cleaning. Are there other people in the kids' lives, like grandparents that are there often, or nannies? That's a really important one, I think, is to talk about the nanny thing, because sometimes it can be difficult to know where you stand as an au pair if they already have a housekeeper or some sort of like child care worker in the house. Talk about what your time off entails. Do you get weekends, mornings off? How many days a week are you working? How much are you paid? Unfortunately, this is kind of an awkward question, or it can be, but it's best just to get it out on the table and talk about it. Not like as the very first question, but I would just recommend that you say what is your idea of an au pair's wages, or what to you is a comfortable amount to pay for your au pairs, and just make sure that it is a livable price. Of course, ask if they have pets, if they smoke, if they drink. If you smoke or drink, make sure you talk with them about that. And of course, like I said, any dietary things, always mention before. Like I would never be an au pair to a family and not mention that I'm vegan, because if I got there and then all of a sudden I'm not eating any of the food they have, or they don't have any food I could eat, then that's kind of a big problem. Just don't be afraid to ask questions. It will show that you're serious about your job and about being an au pair, and that you're not shy around them. Like, don't be afraid, to ask questions. And if you want examples of more questions, let me know and I can add that into another video. So the third thing that I think you should know before you become an au pair is that patience is very, very important. You will have to have patience with not only the children, not only your host family, but also with yourself. And I found this one to actually be one of the hardest things. I was putting too much pressure on myself to automatically feel at home, and I didn't have friends in the first week, and I couldn't speak the Spanish language fluently in my first month. So you have to have patience with the process. Depending on how much time you spend with the kids, you could have just a couple of hours, or you could be spending close to pretty much all day. And again, depending on behaviors or their age or just anything. I mean, if you've had any experience with children, you would know you need lots of patience with them. With this patience is the fact that you will probably be tired. If you're not tired from the jet lag and the change of time zone and all the traveling you've been doing, and if you're not tired enough from being with a new family and trying to find your way around the town, and struggling with the language and trying to meet people, you'll be tired because you've been playing with these children and doing some house chores. So the bags under your eyes will not be Gucci. You're going to have to accept the fact that, a bit of exhaustion in the first while before you get settled and comfortable is perfectly normal. But while you're tired, you have to understand that you still need to have patience with the children and yourself. Now, with this patience, it's also going to be, a challenge in some cases to get on to good terms possibly with these children. Again, depending on how many you have and their age, it might be easier. But as they get older, sometimes, you've got to try to please the kids. And yeah, so just have patience when it comes to the kids being comfortable with you, because you are a brand new person in their life, and they don't quite understand it from the perspective that you do. So if it takes a while, of course, talk to your host parents if it goes on for too long, but just understand that this is all new for the kids. You're new, and the whole situation, you're just gonna have to take time. The fourth point is that homesickness is a thing. Homesickness is a very real thing. I have never been necessarily homesick before. I have had instances or circumstances where I was away from my family for a very long time, and I guess it was like a bit of homesickness. But it wasn't actually until I was with my second host family when I experienced real homesickness for the first time. And you know, it's difficult, and sometimes talking with your family doesn't even necessarily make it better. I mean, don't stop talking to your family if you get homesick. Talk to them, but just knowing that, you know, life at home is going on how you understand and how you've always kind of known your life to be, and your family is in this comfortable place. It's like this comfortable bubble, and now that you're out of that bubble, you just kind of want to like be sucked back in. You don't necessarily always want to be out on your own, and it's hard to be strong every day because, again, you're going to be working for another family, and when you're around these children, you can't be a sobbing mess. It can be difficult to live in a completely new environment, and honestly, I would just say if you are feeling really homesick, talk with your host family, and I really, really hope that, you know, they're comfortable enough with you and you with them that you can talk about homesickness, and they can hopefully try and, you know, at least let you know that they're there for you, because that's what they should be, is there for you. But even if you are 30 years old and an au pair, or if you're 18 years old and an au pair, homesickness is a thing. And just know that even maybe after 3 months everything's going really well and then you get hit with homesickness, it's totally normal and it will go away, or it can go away. And so that leads me into my fifth and final point, is leaving is always an option. Just know that your host family, your host parents, they don't own you, and they don't own you for the amount of time that you guys may have agreed on. It can be different if you went through an agency, an au pair agency, and you have a contract with this family, but in that case, talk with the agency and talk with your host parents and figure out how you can essentially safely leave that situation. Now, this one I think is really important, but follow your gut, because if you feel and have felt for a very long time that things are not going to get better, that you need to leave, that's an option for you. And if things are at that point, then that's what you have to do. Don't be afraid to sit down with your host parents and talk about what's bothering you before you decide to get up and go back home. Like, if it's the children and their behavior maybe that is the struggle for you, it's going to take a lot of guts, but, you know, try to sit down and just talk through it with your host parents. If your host parents are the problem, I would definitely suggest talking with your own parents and kind of seeing what you can do in that aspect of it, and try and find support even where you're living. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like, you know, me being in Madrid and finding a therapist or a counselor or something. But if you've got friends or you've got other adult friends that you've met, I know that, again, with the whole like language barrier, that can be difficult, but don't be afraid to sit down with your host parents and talk. Now, this video was honestly just like the top cover of everything I want to talk about. This is just my 5 skimming the surface things you should know before you become an au pair. I have more videos to come where I'm going to possibly, hopefully, try not to take up years of your life, but I want to dive a little bit deeper into some of these and into some situational things. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please comment, rate, and subscribe. And if you have any questions, please, please, please let me know. And I'm going to try to be answering some at the end of videos like this for you guys. I know I already have a few, and I'm sorry I haven't answered them yet, but I'm going to see if I can kind of collect a few, and then I'll answer some questions at the end of my next video, hopefully. So thank you guys for watching, and yeah, I'll see you next video. Bye!